Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hello and welcome in to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik, and this is episode number 213 of the Baseball Podcast. We're coming at you guys fast and furious now that baseball is just on the horizon. Today is opening night. You're listening to this here Thursday, July 23rd. We have officially made it. For all of you out there who have been listening for the past, 3 months now, 4 months, since I've joined the program, talking to you guys twice a week about anything that I can come up with to talk about. I really appreciate the positive energy, the positive feedback that I've received from everybody out there, and really just thank you guys for coming along for the ride over the past couple of months when we were basically talking about anything we could baseball. But now we're actually going to have games to discuss. And in today's episode, segments 3 and 4, I'll be talking about opening weekend, giving you guys the lines here in Pennsylvania, talking about best bets, potentially who I think the advantage goes to opening weekend and who could get off to a hot start. But right here at the top of the episode, we can't start anywhere else except for talking about Mookie Betts. Of course, reports are yesterday, the 22nd, and Mookie Betts and the Dodgers came to an extension, a record-setting extension for Mookie Betts here. Let's try to make sure I get these numbers right, or at least based on the reports that are out there from everyone from Yahoo to ESPN. Everybody is kind of right around a certain window of numbers. And basically it breaks down to this. Mookie Betts is under contract for this summer, 1 year, $27 million. And this extension that he signed looks to be a 12-year, $350 to $360 million extension, somewhere in there. The exact numbers I haven't seen been reported just yet, but all in all, this brings his total to 13 years and just over $380 million. So for everybody out there and the concern about the coronavirus and the effects that it has on revenue with baseball, we just went through a labor disagreement, and now we're looking forward to 2021 and another possible labor disagreement. And everybody was saying that nobody's going to get paid this offseason anymore due to the ramifications with monetary and economic things that have happened with the coronavirus and COVID-19. Well, the Dodgers said, we're not letting Mookie Betts hit the market. If we have to overpay ever so slightly to get Mookie Betts, we're going to do it. And, 13 at 380, breaking down the math, it's just under 30 a year, 29 and change. So let's look at it historically speaking here. Mike Trout obviously leads the way. Everybody knows that. His number is 12 and $426 plus million. I don't foresee anybody eclipsing that number in the near future. Mike Trout being in his own planet, on his own world, in his own galaxy. It is him and everybody else. And Mookie Betts is as close as you're going to get. People, based on age, based on talent, based on experience and already accomplishments that have happened in his career, he is tier number 2 behind Mike Trout, who is by himself on tier number 1 at the top of the level. This puts him second in the highest paid contracts in the history of baseball. Trout 1, Mookie Betts 2. Bryce Harper remains third. His contract with the Philadelphia Phillies last offseason for 13 years, $330 million. That was just ahead of Giancarlo Stanton, 12 years and $325. And then in fourth place, you have Garrett Cole from this past offseason at 9 years, $324 million. So Garrett Cole, obviously a higher AAV than the likes of Harper and Stanton, who are slightly ahead of him for that total dollar being paid. But how do the Dodgers continue to afford things like this? And that was the first thing that came to my mind is this team is always at the top, right around the salary cap. It's not a salary cap. I guess I should say the luxury tax. Right around the luxury tax. Sometimes pay the luxury tax. Sometimes go over. How are they affording this Mookie Betts extension? And then you look at the books, right? Well, he was already on the books this year for 1-27. So this extension doesn't affect 2020 at all. So then you dive a little bit further into the future, into 2021, and you realize that $50 million is coming off the books from the Dodgers roster this year into next year. Justin Turner at third base is $20 million alone. So you take that 20, slide it to Mookie, you get the extra 9 from a couple other pieces that come off the roster, and you still have $20 million to play with. You give 30 to Betts, you have right around 20 to play with, and that's the 50 you have for next year. So with everybody under contract, the way the Dodgers have been able to navigate it is they've finally hit the threshold where half of their talent, just about, give or take, I mean, I didn't break it down 50-50 for you, but a lot of their talent breaks down to up-and-coming prospects who are back onto major league minimum. They're making $500,000, $600,000. Walker Buehler, Gavin Lux, all of these different kids are making the minimum, which allows you to pay the Kershaw's top dollar, the Mookie Betts top dollar, Justin Turner for one more year top dollar, and you can overturn those high-end talent pieces as long as you can fill in with top-level prospects. This is the goal ultimately for every team out there. The Philadelphia Phillies want to pay top-end talent for the likes of Jake Arrieta to bring him over the top. Well, that lower-level talent, Vince Velasquez, Nick Pivetta, Rhys Hoskins, everybody else, hasn't taken that next step and dominated the way the Dodgers talent has and the way they're able to navigate and work the books here. And the reason I wanted to bring up the Phillies a little bit here is because this now translates to the follow-up question. Okay, Mookie Betts now off the books. He is not going to hit free agency. He was clearly the top free agent. Well, he pulls the Mike Trout card and decides to sign with the team he's on before he hits free agency. That then leads us to number 2. Who now is the top free agent on the board? And if you ask people in the industry, they're going to answer JT Realmuto, the catcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. There was talk that the Phillies and Realmuto were working towards an agreement during spring training. They had to get through his arbitration case because both parties understood the business decision that was involved. We discussed this months ago during the podcast, but just to bring you back up to speed quickly, the team didn't want to pay Realmuto the $14 million, I believe it was, that he was asking, which would have been a record for the catcher's position throughout the arbitration process. And Realmuto wasn't going to accept the $6 they were offering or whatever it came out to because I believe the Phillies actually won this case at $10 million and Realmuto wanted 17 or 16. So the Phillies ended up winning, but Realmuto went to bat for the catching position in the future of the Major League Baseball catcher's position and the players that will battle down the line for their contracts with their organizations, and it wasn't anything to be held against each other as they were working towards a future contract extension. But then the coronavirus hit, and the pandemic shut everything down, and obviously all transactions were canceled at this point, and all of the communication out of Philadelphia since the pandemic has lightened up here and they've returned to work, so to speak, is more of a wait-and-see approach. The L.A. Dodgers with Mookie Betts were super aggressive. They went above and beyond. They said, hey, we heard the rumors in Boston. They offered you 10 and, what was it, 350, I believe the reports were. He countered with 12 and 420 at that level, right below Mike Trout. That leads me to believe 380 would have been somewhere where they would have met in the middle eventually. Boston turned it down, decided to flip him for prospects, wasn't ultimately going to pay above that $35 million a year for 10 years, didn't want to get to the range that Mookie was looking for. Well, the Dodgers knew this going into their talks and said, hey, we're going to go get it. We're going to get it done. The Philadelphia Phillies have kind of taken the opposite approach. They really haven't had any communication with JT. As a matter of fact, if I could play you the audio in here, I would. But the general manager, Matt Klentak, more or less came out and said, we haven't had any discussions, and based on recent events, we don't know where the market's going to be. We can't anticipate if it's going to be where it was before or if revenue loss is going to be so extreme that the ownership isn't going to be willing to spend the money that they were a year ago, because ultimately it's ownership and the ability to spend their cash. The Phillies have a billionaire owner in John Middleton, and the locals around Philadelphia, they are very much aware that you need to spend the cash and you need to get it done. They did it for Bryce Harper. They were all over Middleton when it came out. Hey, they're not going above this number. Nobody wants to pay that. We're out. And people were up in arms locally. And if it gets to that point, once again, with JT Realmuto, I feel that the reaction is going to be very similar. And we know JT is looking for a record-setting contract. He's the best catcher in baseball, has been for a few years, only 30 years old, doesn't have a lot of mileage on the tires, should have about 3, maybe 4 good to above average years in him. I would say probably 2 more as the best catcher in baseball, and then an additional 2 to 3 of above average years behind the dish. If you're able to work him in as the designated hitter now, moving forward, potentially you can extend the career and save the knees, because he's the top offensive catcher and one of the catchers in Major League Baseball who can actually rake and is really a threat offensively. So you do a little bit of research into the history at the catching position and the contracts that have been awarded to players in the past, and really we're looking at 2 different deals. I mean, a lot of the catcher's position are nowhere near the ballpark that JT is looking for. You had a lot of 4-year, $60 million, 5 and 75, a lot of $15, $16 million a year deals. But the 2 big ones are Buster Posey with the San Francisco Giants. He signed an 8-year, $159 million deal, which breaks down to $19 million a year. And then you have Joe Mauer, the king of the catching position, and in regards to the contracts being signed, he signed an 8-year, $184 million deal, and this is $23 million per year. And the reason I emphasize the $1 million per year is because, again, the rumors were out of JT Realmuto's camp is that he was looking for roughly $25 million a year. He wants to be known as the highest annually paid catcher in the history of baseball. And with this knowledge, it basically breaks down to 2 different contract offers. Because, again, if you're the Philadelphia Phillies, you're not looking to go above and beyond probably 5 years for anybody at 30 years old playing the catcher's position. You're thinking that they may depreciate at a pretty exponential level compared to a first baseman or a designated hitter. But then again, with the DH coming around, maybe that allows you to pay him a little bit more, because even if his defense isn't to the level where it's been historically for his career, you could still use him offensively effectively, but you probably don't want to pay just the DH $25+ million a year at the end of his contract. So you look at $24 to $25 million a year. You look at the 5-year range. That means you're right at 120 to 125. 5 years, 125 seems to kind of be a sweet spot that the media has portrayed of. If the Phillies were to offer this, it would be very difficult for JT Realmuto to turn it down. And the only way to extend it and lessen the average annual value is to go to 6 years, like 135, 140, but then you're under that 23 per year, and I don't think JT would be interested in signing it. So it's going to take 5 years, $125 million. If you can get to 25 or 30 a year and go 4 years, $105 million, 4 years, $110. If you really want to stay on the short side as an organization and you think things may deteriorate quickly, if you look into some of the advanced statistics from catchers historically, as well as JT Realmuto in regards to WAR and whip, and not whip, that's the pitching statistic, but batted balls in play, BABIP, a lot of things here that you guys may not know unless you're into diving into baseball semantics and things like that online, and really diving into the, sabermetrics and the new movement of analytics going on here. But JT Realmuto, he's texting Mookie Betts, and he's saying, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I know people were talking that the market may be down. Are they only going to get me for 4 years, $80 million now instead of 4 years, 105? Am I looking at 5 and 100 instead of 5 and 125? What's the deal here? And Mookie Betts getting paid upwards of $30 million, the second biggest contract in the history of baseball. It just goes to show that no matter if there's a pandemic, financial constraints, whatever it may be, that the top-end talent is continuing to get paid, no matter what the deal is. I do think those mid-level free agents and the second tier of talent potentially won't get rewarded like they have in years past. Those Andrew McCutchen 3-year, $35 million deals, that type of level of deal. Even the deals for like a Jake Arrieta, 3 years, $75 million, I think may not be floated around anymore. But if you're the second best player in baseball, you're the top free agent available, you're going to get your cash. And if you're JT Realmuto, who is the best catcher in baseball and has been now for a couple of years, and as an organization, you can't say you have the best catcher in baseball very often. I was having a conversation with some of my friends, and I basically said, hey, have the Phillies ever had the best catcher in baseball? I know they've had some good catchers in their history, Mike Lieberthal, Carlos Ruiz, even going back before that. But was he the quote-unquote best catcher in baseball, or was there always a Buster Posey to your Carlos Ruiz? And at this point, JT Realmuto is that whale. He is that golden goose that you're looking for going, oh my God, this guy's the best catcher in baseball. And you don't let those guys walk out the door on their own, and especially you don't let those guys walk out the door when you gave up multiple prospects to get him in the door in the first place, with the knowledge that last year and this year, you probably weren't going to win the World Series. That really wasn't your window of contention. So if you're giving up that level of prospect just for 2 years, that's one of the dumbest moves in baseball, and it's a move that's got to cost somebody like Matt Klentak his job. So he really has no leverage in this situation. You got to pay JT. You got to make him the highest paid catcher in the history of baseball. You got to offer him $5 and $125 and get the deal done, or you're going to be run out of town a heck of a lot quicker than Sam Hinkie, Brian Colangelo, Ruben Amaro Jr., continue to name them, Ron Hextall, all the general managers that the Philadelphia sports teams have gotten at here over the years. Matt Klentak will be next. But that'll wrap it up here for the first segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am Kevin Mahalik. We're going to pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to dive around news and notes around the league, talk about some problems happening in Kansas City, some partnerships Major League Baseball has made to make the broadcast better for us, and where the heck are the Blue Jays going to play? We're going to talk about all of that when we come back. So stick around, everybody. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik, and I will continue to be your host every Monday and Thursday moving forward. I know we've added a few different co-hosts to the squad here, coming at you pretty much every day now that baseball is back in the fold. Starting out tonight, we got games to talk about, so GSMC Baseball will bring in you a podcast per day. Once again, I will continue to be Monday and Thursdays. There will obviously be a routine. I don't know exactly what it is with the other gentlemen, but just wanted to keep you guys updated. If you enjoy listening to my shows, that'll be Monday and Thursday for you moving forward. And let's read an Apple review for you guys. I know I ask you to leave a review every time I host a podcast here for you guys. We got a new one, 5-star review from Pit number 1. It's titled Mahalik Review. Again, 5 stars. Hey, Kevin, with all the cardboard fans in the stands, where do you think the Marlins fan who wears the bright orange shirt will show up? I bet it's more than one stadium. Thoughts? Shout out to Pitman. Basically, he said 5-star review, and where is the Marlins man going to be this year? Since you can get cardboard cutouts and be more than one place, where is he going to end up? And Pit number 1, I think you nailed it, man. I think you're absolutely right. Last episode, if you guys want to go back and listen, I think it was episode 209, I talked about the prices that you can pay to have yourself put into a cardboard cutout. The Phillies have since been added to that list for only $40. And basically, the Marlins man, who's known to sit right behind the dish at the biggest games of the year, usually once a week, Sunday Night Baseball, top pitching matchups. I mean, if you guys are a baseball fan, and obviously you are since you're listening, and gals, if you girls are listening, if you're a baseball fan out there, you've seen the guy in bright orange when it's Dodgers and Diamondbacks and nobody's in orange. So who is that? Well, that's the Marlins man. He's a very wealthy individual. They've done some backstories on him. I don't know the exact one. I think he's a lawyer or something like that where he can work his own hours. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's buying upwards of 5, 6, 7 different cardboard cutouts. You would assume he's going to be at both teams in New York, in the Big Apple. He'll be in Queens. He'll be in the Bronx. Same with L.A. I would fancy he'd be in the Dodgers and Angels stadiums just because they'll get a lot of primetime television games being in those large markets. Maybe Chicago, both of those squads, north side, south side. Once again, both of those teams have playoff aspirations for 2020 here. Possibly Philadelphia, Bryce Harper, a lot of primetime games. Who else? Where else could he go? I mean, Houston, Tampa, depending on these prices, that's what I think you're looking at. So, honestly, pit number 1, I don't think it's going to be 1, 2, or 3. I think we're looking at 5, 6, 7, or 8. And it may be one of those every Sunday night when you're watching Sunday Night Baseball, you're staring at the Marlins man doing a different face in the cardboard cutouts. But good call out there. If you guys listening right now, if you have an opinion on where you think ultimately he'll end up, or if the Marlins man yourself, if you're listening to the podcast, reach out. Let us know. Hit us up on Facebook, the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. Head over there. We'll shoot you a DM. We'll get into, we'll connect with you. We'll figure out what the answer is. It'll be a lot of fun moving forward. But shout out pit number 1, 5-star review, the Marlins man. Where are you going to be, man? Let us know. Let us know. But jumping in here to segment number 2 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, the latest issues with the coronavirus. It hasn't expanded yet, but this is the first time where I am truly holding my breath in regards to seeing what happens moving forward here. And what I'm talking about is Kansas City Royals player Hunter Dozier tested positive for the coronavirus on Wednesday. And it depends on who you talk to. The Twittersphere loves to run with the rumors, but he was experiencing very small symptoms on Tuesday. Nothing to be alarmed about. His coach said asymptomatic, but I think that could be covering his tail just a little bit. If I put on my tinfoil hat and really dive into the conspiracy theory, I think he had some symptoms, decided to play through it potentially because it could be something else. Well, Wednesday was tested, and it came back positive. And this guy, Dozier, he played 6 innings on Tuesday, I think it was, had 3 at-bats against the Houston Astros. So is it going to spread to other Royals? Is it going to spread now to some Houston Astros players? Again, I know they don't directly interact, but a pitcher who pitched to him or the first baseman who was close to him, are they potentially going to get infected? And I think this is the first case where we've seen since we've started scrimmaging, since we've started traveling, where a player tests positive and you look back and you go, man, the last 48 hours, a lot of people could have potentially been exposed to this individual. And if we don't shut this down and the Astros travel here, the Royals travel there, then all of a sudden they're playing each other and we got to shut the entire league down instead of just these 2 teams. Or is our health and safety protocols working to the point where, yes, again, we're going to see positive tests, but we're doing testing efficiently enough, we're cleaning enough, we're keeping social distancing enough that it won't spread within the locker room. Maybe one other additional person gets it because they shared a trip home or they're in the meeting room together, but it's not the entire clubhouse and it's not the entire team. But this is, again, the first time here on July 23rd where I'm going, man, case number 1 of somebody played the day before and then was tested positive for the coronavirus. What the heck is going to happen? What are we going to do if this spreads? And as of now, it hasn't yet, but we'll see over the next 48, 72 hours what comes back, because we got ball games tonight, 2 of them. Everybody else is off. Then they'll be traveling Friday, and you would think Houston or Kansas City, if you were directly affected 72 hours later, if you have a test, even if you're not showing symptoms at that point, the test would come back positive and we would have an understanding of if the virus was contained or if it was able to spread that quickly within the baseball environment or stadium or however you would like to word it. So I'll keep you guys up to date out there on that one. I'm sure you've heard about Hunter Dozier testing positive, but maybe didn't realize, he played the day before. 6 innings, 3 at-bats, right there with the catcher, the umpire, first base. He's out on the field, tossing the ball around, potentially fielding ground balls, throwing it to first base. All of a sudden, first base, back to the pitcher, and here we go. This is the rabbit hole we didn't want to go down, so we're going to stay away from it again today. But I'm just saying there's definitely cause for concern about a potential outbreak here as we're moving forward. But let's talk now about the Toronto Blue Jays and where the heck they're going to be playing baseball this summer. Because as of last night, as of the 22nd, the state of Pennsylvania basically decided we're not allowing the Blue Jays to play here. So between last episode, when I spoke to you guys about this, and today, there was Buffalo as an option. There was Florida, the spring training facility as an option. Both of those still up for debate, but there were a couple other major league options close to Toronto. Well, little did I know that the Pittsburgh Pirates, because 23 of the 30 dates, I believe it was, PNC Park was actually available that the Blue Jays could just slide in as the Pirates were on the road, and then those other 7 games, they could certainly try to figure something out. But Governor Wolf here in Pennsylvania, I myself, located greater Philadelphia, has certainly been more on the conservative side when it comes to the coronavirus in regards to timing of reopening the state, initial lockdowns of the states, how to reopen the state, whether or not to wear masks, which businesses can operate, how we're doing things, very much on the, cautious side compared to other states out there. And our positive cases have reflected that to where things aren't astronomically high. We tried one county out in Pittsburgh to open the bars. People flooded the bars. We had a spike in coronavirus, and Governor Wolf shut down the bars immediately after that. So very much on top of it, very much not open to the fact of, hey, PNC is going to be allowing other teams to travel in here. I'm already not okay with it for the Phillies and Pirates, but economically, I understand that my power and reach is only so far, but I do have the ability to say, no, you baseball team from Toronto are not coming in here on top of the other two who already call this place home. So Pennsylvania is out, Pittsburgh's out. The only other potential major league option that's still out there is Camden Yards, and there's a ton of concern around Camden Yards if it will be able to logistically hold the Blue Jays as well as the Orioles, because they probably won't want them overlapping clubhouses and things like that, as well as they're in the same division. So when they play each other, what are they going to do for home games? The Orioles, are they going to go to the away dugout? Are the Blue Jays going to go to the home dugout? What's going to happen there? And that's another option that's being talked about when I talk about flipping dugouts, is having the Blue Jays, when they were supposed to play at home, say against the Philadelphia Phillies, so they know the Phillies stadium is not being used at that time. Well, instead of going to Toronto, they're going to go to Philadelphia, and the Blue Jays are going to be the home team. They're going to be, again, in that dugout. Do the Phillies switch dugouts? Probably not. They probably just use the away dugout, but hit first at home. And Blue Jays players are really, really pushing back on this idea, because then they're spending 60 days on the road. They don't have a quote-unquote home stand. If there's a week home stand where you're able to get home with your family, sleep in your own bed, get comfortable in your own surroundings, this would never be the case for this squad. And yes, they're a younger squad, and the kids would probably make it through the summer. But again, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to be on the road 100% of the time when everybody else is only on the road 50% of the time. You have to find a place to stake the flag in the ground and say, this is where we're going to be playing this summer. So for the players, they would much rather play at the AAA facility in Buffalo or the spring training facility down in Florida. Once again, Buffalo, it becomes an issue of logistics and meeting Major League Baseball standards, both with lighting for the facility, the stands, the field, as well as the medical facilities, the locker room, the behind the scenes, that style of things. AAA level, yes, not Major League level. You have spring training, which is all Major League level facilities. The medical staff will be at home. The lighting will be sufficient because they play spring training down there. It's just more of a logistical and safety hazard. It's a hot spot when it comes to the coronavirus. Players would be living in apartments or complexes, and you wouldn't be able to quarantine yourself as easily, again, because you wouldn't be at home where you have a house, a garage, a family, others cooking for you. It's just anything is uncomfortable for the Blue Jays. So any shot they had of making a run here this summer, I do think they'll be better than last year, but certainly now I don't think they're going to be able to make a run at the likes of the Yankees, the Rays, maybe even the Red Sox. So I don't know where they end up. My gut tells me it's going to be spring training until they can figure out Buffalo, but with money in Buffalo, they're not going to put in the lights just to play in Buffalo for 30 games and then have it go back to be a minor league facility potentially in 2021. The upgrades just aren't going to happen due to the money. So it's either going to be Camden Yards or it's going to be the spring training facility in Florida. And I honestly think it's going to be the spring training facility in Florida. And it may be an issue health-wise, and it's certainly going to be a disadvantage wherever they end up for the Blue Jays this summer. And them being in the East and the Phillies playing them however many times, I guess it's advantage Phillies and advantage everybody else when it comes to this situation. But Toronto, 1 week away here. Again, time of recording Wednesday night, and really no knowledge of where that first home game is going to be played on the 29th. So we'll see. They open up at the Rays, so it makes sense. Stay in Florida, stay down there and play. That's my prediction here with the GSMC Baseball Podcast. But wrapping up the second segment, talking about some of the additions being added to the broadcast for television. Since you can't have fans, there's no fans in the stands. Well, what's going on? Well, Major League Baseball has essentially partnered with Google, Sony, and Apple to really be key partners when it comes to the broadcast. And the first part is there has been an upgrade to the replay system. And this is the first upgrade since it was implemented in 2014. And there's a new location for the replay center in New Jersey. There was a company that helped shift everybody in New Jersey, set them up in a new spot where they have 48 different channels, 48 different video channels for every game, 24 isolated cameras where they can slow down, zoom in, zoom out. There's a high-level 4K camera that they can zoom in and use in regards to angles for touching bases, looking at the tag at home, things along those lines. So they very much improved the camera angles, very much improved camera quality, relocated the replay booth that everybody calls into, walkie-talkie headphone style in New Jersey. That setup should be much quicker. They're looking to 30 seconds to 20 seconds is the goal for them to improve turnaround time. When it comes to the artificial crowd noise that everybody is hearing out there, that is coming to you from the likes of Sony. Sony partnered with Major League Baseball to improve cameras throughout the facility as well as things on the technological side on the background. Well, Sony basically came up with 75 different samples of crowd noises, sent it out to all the different teams, said, let us know what you think, let us know what you run. These will be loaded into your system, into your cloud. You'll be able to use them as you see fit. Here in Philadelphia, I don't know if everybody's doing this, but they certainly have the boos loaded as well. When our team does something good, you're going to hear the cheers, but if somebody else pops a home run, the Yankees come in here and bang, 2-run homer, you're going to hear the boo birds. It's going to feel like any other day. Heck, maybe somebody will go out there, grab the ball real quick and throw it back, but no, they won't do that, obviously, with health and safety concerns. But there are boos built into the system. All of that is courtesy of Sony. That'll be a lot of fun. And then lastly, Google Cloud will be doing a lot in regards to virtual signage and advertising. We've seen this here in Philadelphia, not yet with baseball, more on the hockey and basketball side of things where they augment some advertising into the boards around the ice. Well, now in baseball, again, to take advantage of every possible dollar and every possible space to get advertising money behind the dish, they're probably going to augment advertising signs when they zoom out on the fence, in the stands, whatever. They're going to be doing it across the board. But Sony's going to be helping with sound and video. Apple's helping with StatCast video technology as well as Google. So those three companies really partnering with Major League Baseball to hopefully bring a pretty sweet broadcast is what I'm hearing in regards to all the different gadgets and gizmos that we're going to see here in 2020. But that'll wrap it up here for the second segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. We're going to pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to dive around the league. It's opening weekend. Tonight is opening night. We got 2 games to talk about, and then we're going to get into the rest of the slate Friday, Saturday, let you know my thoughts on who could get off to a hot start here. So stick around, everybody. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Thanks for listening, everyone, to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. This is episode 213 of the Baseball Podcast here on July 23rd. Opening day. We made it. Let's go. Oh, man, only a couple hours till first pitch by the time you're listening to this episode. I just saw, again, recording this late Wednesday night here, it's come out. It's a 12-year, $365 million extension for Mookie Betts. I said 350 to 360 were the reports. It's come out 365 on top of the one for 27. That gives us, do the math real quick, 13 and 392 is the final number for Mookie. And that is just a crazy, crazy number. If that does it, ladies and gentlemen, that's why you make your kid play baseball. I mean, I know everybody saw Patrick Mahomes just get $500 million. Yeah, 10 years, $500 million. Well, I got news for you. It's about a 5-year, $200 million deal. Every penny of that 392, Mookie Betts is going to get. So if you haven't started already, get your son playing baseball. Get him out there hitting. Get him throwing lefty. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, 392, every penny guaranteed for 12 more years. It's going to be the year 2032, 2033. It's going to be Phillies, Dodgers, and Bryce Harper and Mookie Betts are going to be in the last year of their contract. And there is a, 8-year-old kid out there right now who's going to be 21 at the time. Okay, let's go 6-year-old kid because Juan Soto was 19 when he came up. 7-year-old kid. Let's do it. 7-year-old kid right now who's in the 3rd grade is going to be playing against Mookie Betts and Bryce Harper in 2033. It's just what? Man, mind blown. Huge money. Shout out to Mookie Betts once again. But diving into opening day here, opening weekend, let's talk about it. We finally got some actual games to discuss, some actual pitching matchups starting out tonight. Obviously with the marquee matchup, Garrett Cole versus Max Scherzer in Washington, 7 o'clock on ESPN. The line says Yankees minus 132, Nationals plus 117 straight up. I might like the Yankees minus 1 at plus 100. I know that's a push there. If you go to minus 1.5, you can get them at plus 132. I do like the Yankees in this one. Honestly, Max Scherzer, he did not look good in his last spring training outing against the Phillies. I know it's spring training. I know you're working on things, but typically when you're one start away from that regular season start, you're trying to pretty much utilize that as a dress rehearsal and not, hey, I'm working on this 4 days before I'm going to go locked in. And to see him give up a couple of 3-run home runs, maybe that slider wasn't moving and it was just a one-time thing. But Garrett Cole has been strong all spring. He's coming off that big contract. He looks to be motivated. The only reservations I have with Garrett Cole is him throwing in the new Yankee Stadium now half the time. The way the ball flies out of there, I've seen pop-ups to right field end up in the second row there in person and on television. I've seen it far too often. So I don't think Cole's numbers are going to be as good as they were last year when he was down in Houston. I don't think that means he's going to be a bust in any way. I just think the expectations are extremely high. And with him being in New York, I don't see him living up to it. But I do like him opening day here. I like him over Scherzer. I think he comes out strong, establishes dominance. And then, of course, in the nightcap, you got the LA Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. So you got Johnny Cueto going against Clayton Kershaw. And on paper, it really does look to be as lopsided as it appears here. So the LA Dodgers minus 335 money line straight up to win the game. If you're looking at the run line, about 2 runs is where you start to have some fun. If you go Dodgers minus 2.5, that's plus 108, meaning bet $100 to win 108. Obviously, minus 2.5 for you, those of you out there who aren't up to, dated with the betting lingo or know exactly what's going on, minus 2.5. That essentially means, just think of it this way, the easiest way I can explain it is that instead of the game starting 0-0, whatever this number is what the Dodgers start at. So basically, top of the first pitch, it is Dodgers minus 2.5 versus Giants 0. So when the Dodgers score 2 runs, it's still Dodgers minus 0.5, Giants 0. So in that case, they're still losing, and you would need them to get to 3-0 ultimately to win 0.5-0 in that instance. So plus minus, I know some people have trouble following out there if you're not into gambling day in and day out. I just wanted to take kind of a minute to explain the run line. Then you get total runs over under. You're looking at an over under 8.5 is where you get to, meaning total runs combined between the two teams. Is it going to be at least 6-4, 10 runs, and you take the over 9.5 at plus 160? I think potentially you could get some runs there. I think that run line of 8 is a little bit shallow in my personal opinion, to be honest with you. But back-to-back, again, opening night, Garrett Cole, Yankees, Dodgers. I'll probably look to parlay the two of them in a little bit of action to have myself some fun and dive back into baseball because, man, am I looking forward to getting into the day-to-day grind here of 10, 15 matchups per day. I really am. So the rest of the matchups for the weekend here, Dodgers and Giants. Let's look at that one. You got Samardzija versus Stripling tomorrow. The Giants got to feel a little bit better about that one. And then in Game 3, the Giants undecided versus Alex Wood is as far as we know. In regards to the Yankees and Nationals, as they continue around the weekend here, let's see. It looks like they have off on Friday, coming back at it Saturday, New York. Why can't I find them here? Okay. I don't have them in front of me. Oh, there it is. Got it. Okay. James Paxton versus Steven Strasburg is most likely going to be game number 2. Let's see here. The games in the matchup starting on Friday. You have the Braves and the Mets at 4 o'clock Friday. The first game on Friday, ESPN. Mike Soroka versus Jacob deGrom. That's a great matchup. Atlanta and New York. New York, some more unexpected news. Not good news in New York. Marcus Stroman has a strained calf in the rotation that is already missing Thor due to Tommy John surgery. So once again, it is Jacob deGrom and nobody else in New York. And calf strains, if it is a full tear, grade 2, whatever it is, that's a 4 to 6 week injury. I mean, for those of you football fans out there, you know exactly what the likes of Deshaun Jackson all the time's going on. You can try to come back, but you're going to continue to tweak that thing because it's a soft tissue injury, and you're really looking at a month to 2 months if you want that thing to fully heal. So if he tries to come back in a couple of weeks, he could tweak that thing again, and the Mets just kind of fall further and further down the potential chain in the NL East. But opening line, obviously, deGrom going money line puts the Mets favored at minus 148. Looking at a run line of minus 1.5 for the Mets, over under 7.5. Oh, man, 7.5 with any time deGrom's on the hill. That's going to be a high mark. So your Mets are your favorite at minus 148. Opening day against the Braves. Next up here, we got the Tigers at the Reds. MLB Network carrying this one at 6:10. Matthew Boyd going for the Tigers versus Sonny Gray getting the nod for the Cincinnati Reds here. Boyd, really the only plus option on the mound for the Tigers. Sonny Gray has really found it once again since he's returned to Cincinnati after his stint in New York. The Reds are the clear favorites, though, based on their offense at minus 195. This also means when I say minus 158, minus 195, that you have to bet this much amount of money to win $100. So utilize, your ratios there. If you bet $19.50, you'd win $10. And if it's a plus number, you bet $10 here. Over under 8.5 plus 102 for the over. If it hits and you bet $10, you win $10 and 20 cents. So that's how that works there. But the Reds are your favorite against the Tigers here starting out on Friday. Let's see, going into Saturday, the Reds, they will be sending Luis Castillo to the bump on Saturday. And in regards to the Mets-Braves, you're looking at Max Fried versus Steven Matz, again, because, Stroman getting whacked. So they're going to need a big year out of Matz. I like Fried in that one, game 2 there when it comes to the Braves and the Mets, that's for sure. The Blue Jays and the Rays next up here. They'll start out Friday. They will be 6:40 down in Tampa Bay. Ryu going for Toronto versus Charlie Morton for Tampa Bay. I would think Tampa Bay would be your favorite, and that is correct at minus 165. Over-under of 7.5 runs. I think the over could be hitting that one. I think you could look at a 5-3 game for sure. Charlie Morton's a plus, but I don't know, man, if Ryu is going to be able to be as strong as he was when he was pitching in front of the Dodgers in that lineup playing behind him there. So on Saturday's action, Toronto, Matt Schoenmaker versus Ryan Yarborough for Tampa Bay. Yarborough, a bit of a surprise there. No Blake Snell the first couple of times through. They're trying to get him situated and ultimately figure out which way they want to go. Next up here, Brewers and Cubbies is the opening series. On Friday, the Brewers will send to the hill. We have here Brandon Woodruff versus Kyle Hendricks. This is on ESPN as well, following the Braves and Mets at 7 o'clock. Let's see. I think we have, can I find them here? See who is favored. We got Milwaukee and Chicago. I got to scroll down. There it is. The Brewers are plus 115. The Cubbies minus 134. They like Kyle Hendricks and the sports betting site here in Pennsylvania. Let's continue around. Marlins and Phillies next up. Or let's see, who are the Brewers going with Saturday? That's a day game, 1 o'clock on Fox. Corbin Burns versus Yu Darvish. It'll be fun to watch Yu Darvish throw. He got lit up his last time in spring training against the White Sox. So kind of like Max Scherzer, it'll be interesting if the ace is able to bounce back and really turn it on for his first start and not let spring training affect him here at all. Marlins and Phillies, they open up 7:05 on Friday. You got Sandy Alcantara versus Aaron Nola. Your Phillies are minus 205. They are big favorites over the Marlins, over under at 8.5. I don't know if that many runs are going to be scored. Let's hope Nola's strong. Game 2 right now, you're going to have Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler and his wife did welcome their birth of their child. That was Monday the 20th. They were expecting him and her. I'm not sure, actually. I don't think they've made an announcement. Just Joe Girardi spoke about it with the media because Zach Wheeler is going to be available to pitch starting with Game 2. There was concerns he was going to have to miss some time, potentially some extended time with the coronavirus and everything going on, but the timing of the 20th was best case scenario for both Wheeler and the Phillies because I know the peace of mind once this event happens is a lot better for the individual. So Wheeler should be able to focus in, and the Phillies won't lose him for any starts here. He won't be there opening day, but he'll report in time to throw on Saturday in Game 2. For the Fightin' Phils. And shout out Wheeler once again. Everything went well for the birth of their child. Awesome. Congratulations to the Wheeler family. Let's see here. Wrap it up segment number 3. Winding it down here. Let's see. We got the Royals and the Indians. Kansas City at Cleveland 7-10. Danny Duffy versus Shane Bieber. The Indians are big favorites here at minus 215. Let's see. Over under 8.5. I think the Royals. I don't know. Money line could be one there that I like to pull a bit of the upset. Minus 215 seems a bit strong. Saturday's matchup, what time are they playing on Saturday? Let's see, Kansas City at Cleveland, 5:10. A lot of day games on Saturday. Wow, only a handful of night ones. Pretty much everybody playing at least at 4:05, and that's not typical on Saturdays. Usually it's a lot of night games, a lot of primetime games, specifically before college football happens. So baseball really spreading things out here. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock rock. No, but there really are games at every one of those times Saturday. It's kind of fascinating to see what they're doing here. But Kansas City at Cleveland, Brady Singer at Mike Clevinger, and it looks like Cleveland is going to get off to a hot start. So out of this first half of these matchups here, New York at Washington for 3 games. That'll be a great matchup. Those pitching matchups every night will be fun to watch. We'll be discussing that on Sunday night's episode, how things turned out. San Francisco at L.A., they're starting out with a 4-game set. You would like the Dodgers to take 3 out of 4 of those based on the rotation, based on that lineup. Once again, the Dodgers probably going to take 3 out of 4 of every one of their games. So not just against San Francisco, but certainly a much better ball club than the Giants. 3 games between the Braves and the Mets. You would think the Braves have the advantage to take 2 of 3, especially now with Stroman no longer going in that second matchup. And then the Tigers at the Reds. The Reds, they're the surprise team. I like them to sweep the Tigers, if not 2 out of 3. Blue Jays at the Rays. With all the chaos going around in Toronto, which we talked about, where the heck are they going to play? What's going on? I like Tampa Bay to take 2, if not all 3 games against the Blue Jays. Brewers and the Cubs. This one's a toss-up for me because the Brewers lost a lot from last year, but I'm not high on the Cubs. The Vegas site, Pennsylvania site, certainly seems to favor the Cubbies. So we'll say they'll take 2 out of 3. Marlins and the Phils. No way the Phils sweep. Just 2 out of 3 is ultimately the goal because they don't play well against the Fish from Miami. I don't get it. They're the one team that Miami just has their number a bit. So hopefully Nola can start it off. Wheeler can follow that, and we'll see what we get out of Vinny Velo in Game 3. Then you got the Royals at the Indians, where the Indians will obviously be favored in all 3 matchups and look to sweep Kansas City opening weekend here. But that'll wrap things up for the third segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We're going to pause right now for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows, but when we come back, we'll finish up the rest of the slate, working through opening weekend, giving you guys predictions, looking at the lines, seeing where maybe we can win some cash. So stick around, everybody. This is Kevin Mahalik with the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We'll be right back.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Kevin Mahalik. This is episode number 213 of the Baseball Podcast here on Thursday, July 23rd. We did it, ladies and gents. Baseball, opening day, actual sports. It is back. The first game, 7 o'clock, first pitch. If you're listening to this in the afternoon, we previewed it back in segment number 3. Talked about Scherzer and Cole. I think the advantages for the Yankees and Cole here in matchup number 1. We'll see how the rest of the weekend plays out. But before we dive into the rest of the slate, I do want to take some time right now to ask you guys to head to social media. Check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. Now that there's a few of us here within the baseball podcast world, bringing you guys content out there every day. I myself continuing to be on Mondays and Thursdays. We are all working on the social media, bringing you guys content, tweeting all the time, Facebook posts. So head there. You'll stay up to date with all the latest information. Hey, Mookie Betts is signing. This is how much money it is. It's $350. No, it's $380. Now it's $365 plus 27. It's $392. This is what we're looking at. You can stay up to date with all that good stuff and everything else you need if you head to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the above. And if you haven't done so yet, like, rate, subscribe, review the podcast. You guys heard the review I read from pit number 1. talking about the Marlins. Man, where the heck's he going to sit? Left us 5 stars. If you guys write a review for myself here, since there's multiple hosts here now within the podcast, but if you specifically put Mahalik or Kevin, I'll read them here on Monday or Thursday. We'll get you guys some airtime. We'll continue to make this a big community, continue to have a two-way street here in regards to communication. That way you guys aren't listening to me babble all the time for an hour plus. Your voice continues to be heard. Your opinion continues to be spread, and we continue to engage and interact and move forward. But diving into the 4th segment here, finishing up the slate of games, continuing around the weekend. We left off the list here, 7:30, Baltimore at Boston. Tommy Milone against Nathan Eovaldi. And honestly, that's one of the more, lackluster opening day pitching matchups. I mean, in Baltimore, I don't even know who the heck Milone is. And Eovaldi, yeah, everybody knows that name, but he really doesn't strike a chord as an ace of a staff. But he's Boston's minus 230 favored, Baltimore plus 190. That's going to be a theme. I apologize to the Orioles fans out there, but I certainly think that plus large number you're going to see more often than not next to your squad here this summer. But Boston minus 230 in the opening schedule here. Let's see, on Saturday's matchup, they play at 135 in Boston. Alex Cobb will go for Baltimore with Martin Perez going for the Red Sox there. Hopefully Boston can get off to a strong start and stick around with Tampa and New York for more than a couple of weeks here early on in the season. Next up down the list here, we got the Rockies at the Rangers. Colorado at Texas, 8:05. Texas opening up its new stadium. Super excited to get a look at that place. Don't get me wrong. I spent time outside of Dallas, not too far from Arlington, in the ballpark there between the years of 98 to 2002. Had some good times in that stadium. Had some good times running around. Went to a couple of games, some day games. Cut school to go to a game. Yes, my parents knew. They gave me permission. All right, I didn't just cut to go to the game like Ferris Bueller style in the stands. But, cut the game a little business person special. Get the ice cream in the cup in the batter's mug there. But now they got a brand new pad there in Texas, looking to show that off at 8 o'clock on Friday night here. Opening up, let's see, Lance Lynn will be the opening starter for Texas in that new ballpark. He'll go against Germain Marquis for Colorado there. I believe Texas is your favorite. Yes, minus 137. Colorado plus 118. This is one of the closer lines we've seen in regards to a toss-up. Is it the closest line? No. Nationals-Yankees is as close to a toss-up as we're getting. Braves, Mets was close, but then, that was the next one up. Texas and Colorado here. But, this next one we got on the list, here it is. This is the first official toss-up. I like it. This is where we get to talk. Minnesota at Chicago White Sox. 8:10, Jose Barrios versus Lucas Giolito. This is one of the matchups of opening day. Honestly, if, your squad plays, if you're a Braves fan or a Mets fan at 4 o'clock and you're going, okay, which game am I watching at night? This is maybe the one you want to flick on, man, because Jose Barrios, he absolutely dealt opening day last year. His arm is electric. He throws that wiffle ball frisbee up there, above average sprint rate. Man, he's fun to watch. He's starting to learn how to pitch on be able to just throw. I saw him come up as a rookie. Man, he's really developed. It's fun to watch. But then Giolito on Chicago's side is one of the more up-and-coming pitchers that nobody really knows about. I know you guys know about him because you're listening to this podcast and we've talked about it, but the casual fan out there doesn't know a ton about Lucas Giolito. And this line currently is a Twins favorite, right? Minus 113. So bet 113 to win 100. Well, the White Sox are minus 103. So bet 103 to win 100. So really, it could go either way. Over under at 8.5. With those guys throwing, I could see the under. But with both of those lineups, I could see the over hitting in that one. So that'll be a fascinating, fun matchup that I'm really looking forward to watching. And then Saturday with those squads again, you got Chicago. Let's see, Minnesota at Chicago. That's a 2:10 matchup. Undecided for the Minnesota Twins versus Dallas Keuchel going for the White Sox. So that'll be a great opening matchup to see if Chicago could figure things out. They've looked tremendous here during spring training or summer camp 2.0, specifically offensively, hitting the crap out of the baseball. And then with Giolito and Keuchel on the bump, man, it could be a fun weekend for the south side of Chicago. Let's see here. Next up, the Pirates at St. Louis. Joe Musgrove versus Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty, the obvious favorite in this matchup here. The Cardinals, yes, minus 200, big-time favorites over the Pirates there. Flaherty, a potential outside dark horse for the Cy Young, going against Musgrove, who is just trying to keep his team around and really not get run out of the ballpark. So you're looking at Game 2, Pittsburgh at St. Louis, 2:05 at MLB Network. Trevor Williams versus Adam Wainwright. That's right, Adam Wainwright still chucking it for St. Louis, still doing it very effectively. It's been fun to watch him, here almost a decade later. I remember him throwing against the Phillies back in 09, 10, 11, that whole run and cast of characters there. And Wainwright, a different pitcher now. He was more of a power guy back then, now a little more finesse, but still certainly a high-quality starter here. A couple more matchups here, wrapping up today's episode of the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We got the Mariners at the Astros Friday night, 9:10 on MLB Network. Marco Gonzalez going for Seattle there. He signed a long-term extension. They're high on Marco. He's another name. Nobody in this market has any idea who Marco Gonzalez is. Even diehard baseball fans probably don't know who Marco Gonzalez is. And they certainly know who Justin Verlander is. So seeing the Astros line of minus 275 is no surprise. It really is the line of that minus 1.5 at 113. It's really, do you think the Astros are going to win by 2? Or do you think they're only going to be able to win by 1? But I think Marco Gonzalez may surprise that lineup first or second time through, but really the depth of the pitching rotation in Seattle dooms them. And then, moving into Saturday, let's see here. Seattle at Houston, 4:10. Tyjon Walker versus Lance McCullers Jr. So it'll be fun to watch McCullers Jr. throw, coming off of Tommy John surgery, throwing all those breaking balls, see if he goes more fastball-oriented or if he stays with that very above-average off-speed pitch. Some people have differentiating opinions on how much strain is put on your elbow in regards to sliders, and if you throw them over and over and over and over, or if you need to mix in fastballs, if it's a repetition thing, or if it's just kind of a one-and-done thing that could, tear some ligaments in there. Different conversations certainly being had. But shout out to McCullers battling back. He'll be on the bump Saturday for the first time in a long time on July 25th at home against the Mariners. Let's see, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they play the San Diego Padres. 9:10, Madison Bumgarner versus Chris Paddock. This is another one of the most outstanding matchups. Both of those guys, absolute studs. So when it comes to pitching matchups, just looking at A versus B, Ryu versus Morton, potentially one of the top matchups. Let's see, obviously Cole Scherzer on Thursday night, but Gonzalez, Verlander, Bumgarner, Paddock. And then the one I talked about, Giolito Barrios. Those are your top ones. So looking at Bumgarner versus Paddock, I think you're going to be looking at a favorite here. Let's see if I can find him. What time is this game? 9:10 on Friday. There it is. Arizona Diamondbacks. Okay. The San Diego Padres, minus 130. Arizona Diamondbacks, plus 112. So the Padres actually favored it here. Chris Paddock and the Padres opening night favored over the Arizona Diamondbacks, and honestly, the first surprise. I would have thought Arizona would have been favored. I've been listening to some individuals within the industry who think Arizona is potentially a top 10 team in all of baseball. They're unsure if they're actually going to make the playoffs because they're in the division with the Dodgers and could get beat up a ton of times, which puts them directly in the wild card. But to hear somebody say a top 10 team in baseball and the Padres, yes, I know Chris Paddock is solid, but he'll be on a pitch count. He'll only be going 4 or 5 innings, and then it'll be a battle of the bullpens. So I think Arizona could be a value bet there at plus 112, and certainly San Diego being a surprise at minus 130. Let's see. Saturday, again, you get San Francisco at L.A., Samardzija at Stripling, and then the third game, let's see here. It is undecided versus Alex Wood, like we talked about. And then the last matchup of the weekend here out west is the LA Angels at the Oakland Athletics. 10 o'clock on ESPN. This will be the third game of the doubleheader. It'll go Atlanta, New York, Milwaukee, Chicago, and LA and Oakland. And we got Andrew Heaney versus Frankie Montes in the battle of who versus never heard of them. It really is. And it's just kind of fascinating that both of these teams are vying for playoffs and have aspirations, and their ace or their opening day starter of Heaney and Montaz, I'm kind of going, man, I've never heard of both of those guys. Who are they? I mean, game 2, Dylan Bundy I've heard of from L.A. just because of his time in Baltimore. And then Sean Mania out in Oakland. I continue to go, who? For the Oakland A's, but they're just the island of misfit toys out there in Oakland. They're the Moneyball squad. They continue to win year after year after year when you have absolutely no idea how that's even possible. And here, Frankie Montaz over Andrew Heaney has Oakland at minus 155 opening weekend. They have the Angels at the underdog at plus 132. So just fascinating to see how Vegas and Pennsylvania both feel about Oakland. They obviously know that offense is absolutely stacked. And they should certainly be favored at home over the LA Angels, both Friday and Saturday. But the Orioles and Red Sox, they're playing 3 games. You would think the Red Sox would look to sweep, if not take 2 out of 3 for them opening weekend. The Rockies at the Rangers for 3 games. Those are really toss-ups. Both of those teams look to be at the bottom of the AL and NL West, respectively. The Twins-White Sox, that's a toss-up. The Twins on paper should be favored probably 2 out of 3 times, but the White Sox, I have them as my surprise team in the American League. They've looked very good early on in spring training and summer camp, so I wouldn't be as surprised if at home they're able to take 2 of 3 from the Twins, and if they start out with a sweep, it's going to open some eyes early on to that club on the south side. You got the Pirates at the Cardinals for 3 games. The Pirates rebuilding. The Cardinals should certainly take care of business there at least twice. The Marlins at the Astros for 4 games. Houston favored at the top of the AL West. Seattle certainly rebuilding. The Diamondbacks at the Padres for 4 games. The Padres will be the underdog most likely in 3 out of at least 4 of these games. I personally like the Padres squad a little bit more than the Diamondbacks, but people within the industry are high on the Diamondbacks. So I'm going to kind of bite my tongue on that one, see how things play out the first couple of weeks, but my gut's telling me Arizona is going to underperform this year. Even with that rotation of Bumgarner, Robbie Ray, I don't think they put it all together effectively there out west. And then the Angels versus the A's for 4 games. You're probably looking at a split, but the Angels, they're going to be battling uphill all summer. I really want to see Mike Trout back in the playoffs, back in the postseason. But with the rest of the AL West, the NL West being one division and that whole ordeal, I just don't think that they're going to be able to pull it off here. But the West Coast squad, they're all playing 4 games early on. Everybody else is playing 3 games. But, ladies and gentlemen, we finally made it, and I want to thank you one more time here, as, again, it's coming up on midnight. We're about to turn over into July 23rd, opening day. There's about to be baseball on the same calendar day that I'm talking to you here, if I could hang on for a few more minutes. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm just letting you know we're wrapping up here Wednesday night. But I really do want to thank you for listening to me talk to you guys for the past couple of months. I know now that the sport has come back, we're adding additional hosts, adding more episodes, giving you guys more opinions, more content, and it's all quality content. But just for the past couple of weeks, having it be you guys and myself every Monday, every Thursday, talking about the best there ever was, the longest home run, the best uniforms, the craziest nicknames, whatever it is. You can think of it. We talked about it, and it was a ton of fun. The numbers have gone up, so you guys are listening to me when I ask you to share this podcast, which, hey, share this podcast with one of your friends. I tell you every week, but do it for me, please. No, I really appreciate it. So we're going to wrap it up here for episode 213 of the Baseball Podcast on Sunday night. We're going to have actual results to discuss, actual baseball to talk about, and man, I can't wait. I'm certainly looking forward to it. So enjoy opening night, whether it's Thursday, Friday, whoever the squad is you're rooting for out there. I wish them luck. And the Fighting Phils, come on, baby. Don't let me down this summer. But I am your host, Kevin Mahalik. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I appreciate everybody listening out there. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.